Okay, now, today I'm going to go through some of the bits that we missed, obviously, last week when I was away. Is that okay? We've gone. Training. There we are.
Is it only me and you today?
Yep. No, well.
Wow.
Okay. Now, where it says, you can still hear me okay?
Yeah.
Fine. Where it says on LO2, 2.1,
yeah.
Explain why it is important to identify and meet the individual needs of learners, analyse the role and use of initial and diagnostic assessment in agreeing the individual learning goals, and use the methods of initial and diagnostic assessment to agree individual learning goals with learners. Now, actually, I put on the sheet on here, if you are not involved in this process within your school or where you're actually working at the moment, as long as you can get the records for 2 of your learners, that's fine. And then it just explain how they work and how they got them to that position, and just, again, talk around those. And that's sufficient for LO2, or sorry, 2.1, right through to 2.4, because it's all about why it's important, what sort of role it plays. In other words, it identifies what the problems are or needs are, and then use the methods. In other words, actually produce an initial assessment process and then record the learner's individual learning goals. So the process normally is that you will perform the initial assessment. Sometimes a diagnostic will be done afterwards. This is mainly done with adult training. It may be that they are at a specific level. Certainly with somebody who's learning English as a second language or something like that, they may be between levels. And the diagnostic says whereabouts they are between those levels. It'll say which bits they need to learn to get up to the next level. But it's not always used in normal schooling with children. But certainly the initial assessment is done to find out where they are and what they're up to and what they're hoping to, or what is hoped to be achieved during the next period.
So would that be like their baseline assessment? Would that
I'm not hearing you very well. Your voice sounds as though you're talking down through a glass of water.
would that be a baseline assessment, basically?
Yeah, exactly. Baseline assessment to say where we are and what we're up to and what we're doing. And this is where we want to get to. And then from that, usually an individual learning plan or training plan is developed from that initial assessment.
So I've sent you 2.1 and 2.2.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I've done it correct.
Right. Did you send it to learner work?
Yes, and I sent it to Phil.
Right. I've got an issue with this at the moment because it's not actually come through to me. It should come directly through to me when you put it into learner work, and it hasn't actually come through to me yet. What I would ask you to do is, after we've had this session tonight, put it through to my email, yeah?
Okay.
And I'll pick that up. I'll pick that up after we've done the session. I'll have a look at that, and then I'll text you from there.
I sent it to both, yeah? I sent it to learner work and to Phil.
Just a minute. I'll check up that now while we're on here. Whoops. It has appeared. Now, that's only just appeared. It wasn't there earlier on today. So, right, okay. Well, we'll have a look at it now, shall we?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'll take you through that then, yeah? I
Okay.
will assess. 3 minutes for that. Okay. Open.
I think what I need to do is put in the baseline assessment and the IEP. And I think maybe 2.1 and 2.2 I might have done correct, but I need to tie them up together.
Yeah. Well, this is it. If you've got documents, that you can use, then it's just a matter of linking the documents up with your narrative. That's all. Yeah.
Okay.
But what I would suggest is it depends on your school. Some get very concerned over this. So what I usually ask you to do is, if you've got actual copies of two learners' initial assessment, and a learning plan, just take the names out.
That's what I actually sent it to you with, they've got initials.
Right, hang on. I'll just go back from here.
And
put that down a minute. And I'll go to that one. Open. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. When you write your script about it, just refer to them as learner A and learner B. Yeah.
Okay.
That's all you really need to do. But the name, review number, date when it was done, introduction, say the purpose of the meeting, review targets, target 1 partially achieved, anything that parents, professionals like to add, any notes.
This is more the minutes.
Targets.
So down, I think I put the IEP in there.
Yeah.
There it is.
And that will not turn around for me, but I will have a quick look at it that way. Amsterdam School. Yep. Start there. Yeah, that's excellent. That's excellent. That's exactly what's needed. Yeah.
So I've got 2 of those.
Yeah.
And then I think I need to know where I'm going wrong with what I've written then, basically.
No, what I put in on the you don't have to do this, but what I would do is when you've got your initial assessment done, I usually put on, if you've got one of the students that has a learning issue, it could be anything, then fine, make one of your learners have an issue, and then you can talk about how you adapt things later on for that learner. Now, because this is an exercise, if you haven't got a learner with that situation, make one up.
I put a child with dyslexia, and
fine. That's excellent.
With cerebral palsy.
Yeah, and then later on in the unit, you can explain how things have been adapted for that particular learner. Yeah, because that will go through, and it actually follows through. I think you'll be able to use that evidence on Unit 3 as well, because there is some cross-referencing as you go through. As we've said, Unit 1 is a massive unit. Yeah. It's 8 learning objectives and quite a lot of assessment criteria to each of the learning objectives. If we answer them as fully as possible, when we move on to Unit 2, 3, 4, there's a certain area where you can cross-reference the evidence. It'll ask for things like initial assessments. It'll ask for things like learning plans. It'll ask for things like lesson plans, which you will do in Unit 1. So you can actually just pop, when you get to that position on the other units, you can just write in, see cross-reference to Unit 1, 4.1, 4.2, whatever it is, and you don't need to put any further work in. There will be instances, and I've actually highlighted them as you get further on, where it's very similar but not quite the same. But you can use the evidence as the example, but you need to write a little bit in your script about what the difference it's asking you to do on the assessment criteria. You okay with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, because well, I will take you through it when we get there. Don't worry about it. It's basically Unit 1 is the super important one, and as you work through and complete Unit 1, you'll find that it does get easier. Unit 2 is still quite a big unit. 3 is a bit smaller, 4 is a bit smaller, and some of them get down. Well, I think one of the units only got a couple of learning objectives in it, and some of that can be cross-referenced as well. And one of the units is a pure theoretical unit that you can't use evidence for. It's something you need to talk about and discuss. Yeah.
Okay.
But I'll explain that when you get to there. But what you've got is you've got slight confusion with LO2, yeah? But
Yeah.
I think we've covered that now. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I just want you to go, if you go through 2.1 and 2.2 for me,
Yeah.
I know for 2.3 and 2.4, I'd need to just paste in the initial baseline assessment and the IEPs, basically.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to ask me to...
Exactly, yeah. Who's joined in?
Adele.
Hi, Adele.
I was here before, but I couldn't connect on the video.
Ah, right, okay, yeah. Well, you've got on now. We're moving on through LO2 of Unit 1,
Yeah.
just to cover some of the highlights again.
Okay.
Yeah, I know have you sent some stuff in already, haven't you?
Yes, I have. I've made some improvements, so I'll send it after this.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. What I'm just clarifying for Deepa is that as much of the actual records that you use on a day-to-day basis, where they'll slot into what it's asking on here, use them, because that means you've got less writing. You can really just explain what they are rather than go into a theoretical case of how you should do this or how you could do that. And wherever you've got, wherever you're going to write about something like that, write in the first person. I do this, I do that. Yeah, you don't have to write as though it's an academic exercise. Yeah, it's actually a real life practical qualification. This.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll nip back to that now. I've had a look at there. Put that down a sec. Close that for a minute. So that 2 point or learning objective 2 is literally all about finding out about the learner's needs, recording those needs on an individual learning plan, yeah?
Okay.
From your initial assessment. And the learner will, again, LO3 then, it leads straight into be able to plan inclusive teaching and learning. So many of you will probably or maybe not have to devise the scheme of work. The scheme of work may be already in position for you, where you have to deliver the lesson planning done to meet that scheme of work. But that's fine, just put it in, or a copy of the scheme of work or its intentions, and again, a couple of lesson plans. One is sufficient, but if you've got 2 for each of your learners, then where you can show where you've adapted something for that particular learner. So, devise a scheme of work with internal and external requirements.
Yeah,
Teaching and learning plans which respond to the individual needs of learners and the curriculum requirements. And explain how your own planning meets the individual needs of learners. And this then refers back to LO2 in what you found at that point, yeah, and that's what you found at that point and recorded in the individual learning plan or goal. Then you can transpose that into LO3. That's the data, in other words, you're going to work on to actually produce your response.
Got a question.
Yeah.
On the LO2, because I was working from the that assignment sheet that breaks it down.
Yeah.
And on 2.3 and 2.4.
Yeah.
It says you put the ILP. You mean the individual learning?
Yeah,
plan.
individual learning plan is 2.4. Yeah. The results from your 2.3 is the results from your initial assessment. Yeah.
2.3.
And you then use those the results or the data from that initial assessment to record then an individual learning plan for those particular learners. Yeah.
You don't want the learning plan in 2.3 because I think I put it there as well.
2.3. Well, yeah, it's again, you could run 2.3 and 2.4 together if you wanted to explain what it was and how it worked and what you've done, and this is the recorded result. And then you've got your 2 learners' learning plans. And obviously, did you catch that bit? I meant Deep had already done it anyway, but if you're using records from your learners, take the name out.
Yes, I learner 1 and learner 2, I think.
Yeah, well, that's fine. Whatever. And then when you refer to them in the script, refer them as A and B or 1 and 2. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Just to differentiate.
2.4, is that the progress report?
It's the actual result. That is the learning plan. Yeah, that is the result of the exercise you've done previous to that, which is do the initial assessment. Yeah, the results or data you get from the initial assessment is then put together to record the learner's individual learning goals, what they plan to do. That's the individual learning plan. Any of the processes are interchangeable. If you were doing practical work, if it was sort of an MVQ type setup, then it would be individual training plan. So they would have a training session that would lead to achieving a certain goal at the end of it. So in an academic point of view, from an academic point of view, it's an individual learning plan. From a practical point of view, it's an individual training plan. The worded slightly differently, but the process does the same thing. Now, as I said, in LO3, it's to be able to plan inclusive teaching and learning. And that is taking the data you've got from this, and if you've got, as Deepa said, you've got one that's dyslexic, yeah? So at some point, the plan will have to include that particular student or learner. And you will find that the lesson plan may have to be adapted, yeah, at some point for that particular learner. And when you put the lesson plan together, you'll be able to show on the lesson plan, yeah, what you've actually done for that particular learner. It could be something fairly straightforward. It could be something quite complex where you've got to get assistance in, where you have to get, say, a reader or a listener for somebody with either sight issues or hearing issues, yeah. But all it is, you record what it is. So the scheme of work then comes next, a copy of the scheme of work that you're working to, and then lesson plans which match the individual goals and needs of learners. And the curriculum requirements, of course. We've got to achieve those for everybody. So, yeah. And explain how your planning meets those individual needs. And then it says actually on the next one, 3.4, explain ways in which teaching and learning plans can be adapted to meet the particular needs of individual learners. So again, this is why I said if you've not got a learner with an issue, a learning issue, invent one. It doesn't matter. This is an academic exercise to some extent, where you can extemporize and put in what you would do for a particular learner if they had this issue. Yeah. Again, it would probably need some information from the establishment that you're working in. If you've got, there's usually, not always, but there's usually somebody responsible for dealing with learning issues, certainly in junior schools, and how that's met with in the normal classroom operation. So it's design a scheme of work. Sorry?
Can I ask, for 3.4,
yeah.
Would that be, in your plan, you just put in the differentiated teaching?
Yeah, what you've done, it's explain what you've actually done to include that particular learner in the normal class. Yeah. Okay. Like I say, it may be something very simple like large text, or it could be something a bit more complex like having an extra person in class to assist that particular student or learner, so that they can sit in with they're in with the rest of the class and they're actually learning curriculum or meeting the curriculum requirements with that assistance, and that's here your adaptation. Yeah. What's been done to meet the individual needs of learners. And then the 3.5, this gets easier the older children that you teach. And certainly in further education, it's quite straightforward. In fact, we have, has Eilish spoken to either of you yet? No?
I don't think so.
Yeah, well, Eilish is our student support. And periodically, she will ring students up at random and ask them,
I've spoken to her.
Sorry?
I think so. Did she ask about?
She might send you a form to fill in.
Okay.
Or she may do a telephone interview with him and ask you the questions and fill it in. It's really to provide feedback to us to make sure that you're happy with what's happening, you're learning okay, and that you're having your answers, given to you. So again, if you're teaching very young children, getting that feedback from learners is difficult. One of my other students teaches infants and junior, up to 6. Now, what she does is they have a talk round the table, and she makes notes of who's asking questions and who's not asking questions, who's sort of being included in the group and who's not being included in the group, and that's her feedback, and that's how she records her feedback from the little ones, really, so that she can fulfill 3.5. Again, none of this is set in stone. You've got to adapt what you actually answer with to suit your particular circumstances. It's a flexible qualification, this, because it matches teaching in all its aspects, from junior and infants right through to adult training. The processes that you will go through, although they will be exactly the same, but they will be adapted differently to suit the purpose of the particular learner or student. But the process you go through will be exactly the same. When I put, we've got students that come on from other countries who English is not their first language, but they want to do levels 6 and 7 in business or management. Now, we go through a process with them first to find out what they've done before, what the level of English is, will they be able to cope with it, and certainly the written parts of it anyway. So we go through that initial assessment process with students on those courses, and we record exactly what we find, so that we can then say, we recommend that you do this course first, or we think you need to do ESOL and bring your level up to whatever it needs to be before continuing on the course. Otherwise, in fairness, our courses cost money. If we would be taking money under false pretenses if we put people onto courses that we were setting them up to fail for. So basically, we make sure that students are going to be able to cope with the work and have got something to bring into it already. In terms of the teaching courses, you've got to be in a position to gain evidence from the area that you're working in. So we've got a learning plan. We're going to be able to plan the teaching and learning, devise a scheme of work, design teaching and lesson plans to meet the individual goals, explain how the planning meets those needs, and explain ways in which learning plans need to be adapted to meet specific or individual needs of learners. And then if you've got a situation, there will be some way, if you teach any group, some of them can be really, how can I say, you don't get anything back. You don't get any feedback from them when you're talking to them. It can be like a blank wall. And I've worked with teenagers from sort of 14 to sort of 18, and they can be probably one of the most difficult groups, because you get little feedback off them. As they are in a group, nobody wants to stand out, nobody wants to ask questions, and nobody wants to be the one that, gets, oh yeah, he's great, and all the rest of it. So it can be a difficult area, but there's usually somewhere where you can elicit some information from your students to find out how you are doing. Am I doing this right? Are the people understanding what I'm saying, and are they able to move forward, or am I a barrier? Do I need to look at the way I'm presenting something or putting something forward? So that's always a question as a teacher. It's a very reflective role, really, because after every session, I will listen to the recording afterwards and think, oh, perhaps I shouldn't have said that there, or I could have said that differently, or I could have put this in a better way. So yeah, you will reflect all the time, and identifying opportunities to provide feedback is really important. Oops. So LO4 just moves on from that. So you've done the initial assessment, you've put a learning plan together, you've started to, you put a scheme of work and learning plans together, and you've started to teach. So 4 then is be able to, before you teach, is to create and maintain a safe and inclusive teaching and learning environment. So explain why it is important to promote the appropriate behaviour and respect for others. Explain ways to promote equality and value diversity, and establish and sustain a safe and inclusive environment. Now I've got, if I close that down a minute. Oops. On here, I've got a bunch of stuff. Inclusive teaching and learning, education, training, learning styles, theories that underpin in teaching and learning, legislation and codes of practice, inclusive teaching strategies, and a teaching application. That actually, you've got access to the VLE, okay? Have you? You can get it, what I'm on now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So I'll put this one on purely because I want to use it as an example as much as anything. Right. This one I put together from another organisation. So I've looked at it, and it's useful, but only in a certain way. Now I put in red unit amplification. So on here, it will say they put a whole host of things on here. Now I don't want you to do everything that's on here. These are just it's sort of brainstorming on your own, yeah. So you can look at the sort of things that he's talking about and gives you some ideas per script. That's all, yeah. But it's a useful tool, and you get through 2.2. Again, learning needs, inclusive diversity, range of styles, approaches, define goals, building understanding, developing skills, sequence line, linked to assessment, skills development, integrated approach, distance or blended approach, timescales and staffing. All these things that you could talk about when you're actually putting your links into your actual evidence that you're going to produce, yeah? Internal, external requirements, how things are timetabled, resources that you've got, vocational or professional standards. These are for like all the adult training, yeah.
Is this for LO4, Phil?
Sorry?
Is this for LO4?
No, this is for starting off at the beginning. This is just a sheet with 1, 2, 3, oops, and 4. LO4, yeah.
That should include.
So equality and diversity, fit for purpose, audio, visual, hands-on, varied range of materials or tools, practical activities, varying styles of presentation, specific needs. It could be, again, like I said, it could be readability. It could be a certain font or size of font that some children with a sight impairment need. So it's just giving you ideas. All these are for, it's just to give you ideas. You don't have to put all this in. It's purely there as a resource for you to have a read through and think, oh yes, I could write something about that because we do such and such a thing. It's just like an aid memoir, really. That's all you want to use it for. But I put it in because I thought it was quite useful, yeah.
Okay.
Coming back to LO4, it's explain why it's important to promote the appropriate behaviour and respect for others. The school will have, or most schools have some sort of, not exact, but disciplinary procedure, if you like. It depends on again, the groups that you're dealing with. Some will be clearer than others in terms of what they will accept and what they won't. But again, if you've got that, or you can ask somebody in your establishment who deals with this, how do we cover discipline, then they will probably have to give you some documents that you've got, school policies and that sort of thing, that you can then refer to when you get to LO4, yeah. Explain ways to promote equality and diversity. On one of those handouts I've got on there, I've covered that on there as well, so you can have a look at that. Establishing and sustaining a safe and inclusive learning requirement, yeah. So it's read and respond to the booklet, obviously, and the handouts. Explain how it is implemented. Yeah, if you've got a policy, then explain how that is implemented. Again, read and respond. Use the work school college health and safety policy to explain how that is implemented as well. Quite a lot of sort of junior school, it is on a fairly low level, but it will still be there. It'll be things like having wires all over the place and that sort of thing when you've got a classroom set up. But as you get into more senior schools where they've got labs and things like that, then this is becomes a much bigger issue in terms of health and safety, making sure that safety glasses, gloves, all the other bits and pieces that they have to use when they're in the lab are available. There's been a risk assessment done, for instance, on particular things that are accomplished during the lesson plan. So again, it's establishing a safe and inclusive learning environment, again, to meet the area that you're actually working in. Yeah. So it will either be fairly straightforward or it may be more complex. So it depends what you've got, and that's what you write in there. Now, what I'll do, I'll just cover 3 and 4 again, just to make sure you're happy. We've got devise scheme of work, lesson plans to match the scheme of work, individual goals and needs of learners, and the curriculum requirements. Yeah. Explain how your own planning meets those needs. Use the points in 3.2 to explain the task in 3.4, 3.3 and 3.4. I've got 3.4 twice there for some reason. I don't know why. That's better. Explain ways in teaching and learning plans can be adapted. Show how you adapted your plan at 2.4. Yeah. For the learning issue at 3.5. Show a completed feedback questionnaire, which you obtained the feedback from students, or in the case of workers, for example, after an appraisal. Again, this is for more adult trainees. If you've not got any situation in your, sorry, if you've not got any documentary evidence in your working situation, then explain how you try and get feedback from your students to find out how you were doing. Yeah, basically.
Can I write down basically a verbal conversation?
Yeah, what you can say is what's been to explain how you actually elicit information from your students to get some feedback. Yeah. Write about it. Explain how it happens. Yeah.
What I do is, when we have the learning objective, it may be, can I answer open-ended questions or something like that with their title, and then we deliver the work, and as you're going through the work, we can see whether they are actually reaching the target or not. Yeah.
That's exactly right. It's to find out how they are learning, what the results are from what your input, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
4, again, each of the learning objectives builds on the one before as we work through. So as you get to 4, it gets to we've done all the preparation, and we've started to teach. So we explain why it's more important to make sure that behaviour is correct in class and that you're promoting equality and diversity and establishing a safe and inclusive learning environment. Again, in this one, there should be within your establishment records of policies or procedures that you've got to cover certain things like this. Every school will have an equality and diversity policy. Yeah. Again, the health and safety side of it, there will be something in there from the school that you can use as the basis for your discussion. Yeah.
So do we need to put that, do we need to add that in as a part of the appendix?
Well, yeah, you can. Well, what I tend to do is I'll leave it up to you. It doesn't matter how you do it. You can either, what I tend to do is put appendices at the end of the unit. Yeah. But Some students prefer to put them at the end of the learning objective. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine as well.
Okay.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. From an assessor's point of view, it's easier for me to see if they're at the end of the learning objective. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's purely, you know, from my point of view. Whatever you feel comfortable with, if you feel more comfortable putting them at the end and just numbering them, and then you can refer to the number in your script then. Yeah, see Appendix 3 or whatever it is that you're referring to. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I've been doing so far. So I went back when you looked at my work, and I did that. I went back and then I added in Appendix 1,
Yeah.
1 or whatever it was.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Superb. What's that done now? Just going to look at something else and it's vanished. Okay. How do you feel up to now? Do you feel I've gone far enough tonight, or do you want me to carry on into LO5?
We could touch base.
I'll tell you what I'll do. We'll leave it where that's what you really need to get on with for the next session. Yeah. But I'll cover LO5 because it's about the delivery of it. Yeah.
Okay.
So analyse the effectiveness of teaching and learning approaches used in your own area, yeah, in relation to meeting the individual needs of learners, yeah, and an analysis of what you do in your teaching approach and why it's effective, yeah. Well, this is a bit of a narrative from yourself now on how you actually operate, yeah. 5.2, you can include college or schoolwork communication practice, example, email meetings, or how you actually communicate within the actual school itself. Some schools I've been in, have got excellent communication systems. Others are absolutely abysmal. Nobody talks to each other. Messages get missed. It's a mess. Yeah. It's a few years ago I went into one, and the implementation report we put in was 16 pages long.
Wow.
It is actually a very important part of communication in this area. Yeah.
I do all of them. So I approach the teacher and talk to them directly. I send an email, and I have a summary management form where I just log in on this day. I talk to this person, and
brilliant. I mean, that's what more and more schools are actually using that system now. It's almost like
backing yourself up.
Coming over to the health and safety bit that we mentioned before. Some companies now have got literally every job of work has got to have a risk assessment. Yeah. What they've done is put all those risk assessments onto a computer database, and if someone's going to do that job, they can click onto there, look on at what they've got to do, and what the actual assessment is, and what they've got to do about it. So it's the same thing. If you've got a central spot you can log into and have a look and speak, then and pass information and receive information. That's brilliant. And again, this is analyse the benefits and limitations of the communication methods used in your own area, and analyse the effectiveness of the resources that you use. Now, this can be, because it says analyse, what I don't want you to do is just put a list of what you do. Analyse, I ask you to actually say, if there are benefits, put what they are, but by all means, if there are limitations in there that you can see, then write it. Nobody else is going to look at this, only me and you. I'm probably the external verifier. So if you've got criticisms or a critique of the operation that you're working in, by all means, use it. Again, the effectiveness of the resources that you use. I mean, I've had students say to me, we've been crying out to put this in or that in, and we're just not getting a response. Write it in. It made very good reading, actually. So, this is, again, being able to deliver inclusive teaching and learning depends on the communication system and the effectiveness of the resources you've actually got to do the delivery. Yeah. So if there are issues that you've got within your organisation, by all means, write about them. Okay. Don't bottle anything up. But anyway, that's I'm just giving you an outline and showing you how each of the learning objectives moves on from the last one. Yeah.
Okay.
use learning approaches, demonstrate ways to promote equality and diversity, adapt teaching and learning approaches. I mean, you can go back to what you've mentioned earlier in some of these, because they are crossover points in there. Yeah, use your lesson plan and your ILP again to explain how the policy is implemented in your teaching. Yeah, so the earlier work can be used in at this stage, and this is why I put this in here. Yeah, to show what particular evidence you can put together for that. And as I mentioned before on this sheet, yeah, as you put, I will put in my assessment here, yeah, and your achievement along this side here, and all you really need to do is just put the page numbers in for me. And as we get to each point that I've assessed, yeah, where we're up to there is LO1's more or less achieved for you now. So when we get to LO2, I will again rub all this out and put my assessment in its place. So when we've completed the unit all the way down, all my assessments will be in here. It will mark up that you've achieved it down here, and you'll have to just write which page number that particular piece is on there. Yeah?
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Right. Well, I won't go any further into that tonight, because I've talked a lot about policies, procedures, and methods, initial assessments, and so forth. But like I say, look at it as a practice, as though, I try and put it this way, look at it as though you were looking at the process within your organisation from over the top. And you're saying, right, well, the initial assessment's being done here. Individual learning plans are being worked out from that initial assessment. Then we've got a scheme of work or a curriculum to meet, and these are the lesson plans that are going to achieve it. We get feedback from that, and then it's all about if we've got issues that we need to deal with, how we deal with them, what the policies and procedures are that your establishment has that will cope with those, and really you just talk around what you've got. Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes it may be one of my other students, Jill, she's on the last unit now. In fact, she just sent it me this afternoon. She put on there, it's made her question a lot of things in her school that she wasn't aware of. And people, but I've suggested, well, you may have somebody who deals with this or deals with that. Ask somebody, find out, and all of a sudden she's found somebody that is there for that particular purpose, or part of their job is to you know, find out things or make sure that this is in place or make sure that is in place. That she, although she worked there for a number of years, was not aware of. So in some respects, it's been a useful course for her, because she's found out a lot more about the establishment she works in. So again, most of the time, there will be people there to help if you just ask. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I've not heard anything from Adele. Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you, but you've frozen, so I can't really see you anymore, but I can definitely hear you.
All right, okay. Well, what I've basically said, it applies to you both, obviously. Use whatever documentation you've got in place. Discuss around that to answer the questions basically on the assessment criteria. But again, a lot of the time it'll say do something specific or design, explain, identify, explain, establish. They're all things that you can talk about and discuss around the situation you've particularly got in your establishment. So when we get down to LO5, it then says, yeah, okay, we've done all that, and we're actually teaching now, and we do this and we do that, and we've got policies for this, that, and the other. Analyse the effectiveness of those. Yeah. Analyse what you're doing now. Is it working? Is it not working? Can it be improved? Do you think it can be improved, or do you think it's great? Yeah. It doesn't. This is really just asking to look at everything you've done before and say, well, this is what we do. Does it work? Yeah. Is that you know, is it working? Could it be improved? That's basically all LO5 is asking. But it's asking you to analyse those, so that means there's got to be some discussion in your script, not just a list of things that you do. Yeah?
Yeah, I understand.
Okay. Anybody got any more questions?
No.
You okay with that up to where we're up to now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, don't forget, I'm on the end of the text or the end of a mail. I'm hoping we're getting back to normal this week now. We've moved into our new offices, our new suite in the new big posh place in Manchester, and I've got a new little office now and everything. So I'll be able to cover some sort of stuff when I'm in work. I only actually work 3 days. I only do Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. So that's dispensation for my age. But basically, I'm still online during the days when I'm not there, so I can always pick up stuff from emails and obviously text as well.
Okay, great.
So if everybody's happy with where we're up to now, I will await some more work. And obviously, if I've got now, I'll go through that one and send it back to you afterwards.
Perfect.
Are you okay with that, Adele?
Yes, I'm going to send you what I've done so far, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Great, yeah.
Okay.
Just as I mentioned to Deepa earlier as well, send it to my college email. That's phil@ukversity, yeah?
Okay.
.co.uk. Because it should go to learn and work now. We've got a situation that I've not received some of those and not come straight through, or there's been a delay in them coming through. Like I said to Deepa, I checked that this morning and again after lunch, and there was nothing on there. And now suddenly tonight it's appeared. Only I got back late tonight, so I didn't get a chance to actually do the setup before about 8:15. Okay, guys, thanks for your attendance, and I will speak to you again next week.
Okay, thank you.
Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.